She waited years to hear his voice again. But when he finally spoke, it wasn't the reunion Amy dreamed of. It was raw, painful, and full of truth. In the quiet stillness of Heartland's ranch, two hearts once connected by love now struggle to understand the cracks that time and grief have left behind. Ty's return was never going to be easy, but no one expected the emotional storm that would follow. The wind whispered through the open barn doors as the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the familiar ranch. Amy stood near Spartan, brushing him slowly, but her mind was far away, years away, in fact. Every creak of the barn floor, every distant neigh, every rustle of the trees outside, it all reminded her of him, Ty. After all this time, he was back. But he wasn't the same. The door behind her opened. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She felt it. The air changed, heavy and sharp. It was him. For a moment, silence. No greeting, no embrace, just the weight of the past between them. Then his voice, low and unfamiliar. "I didn't know how to come back." Amy froze, her hands tightening on the brush. Her heart thudded loud in her chest. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his. Ty looked older, not just in appearance, but in spirit. His eyes held pain, too much of it. "You could have written, called, anything," she said quietly, but there was a tremble in her voice she couldn't hide. "I wanted to, so many times, but I didn't know what to say. I was broken, Amy." Her breath caught. That word, broken. She had felt it too, for so long. After he left, she had to learn to live again, to smile again for Lindy, to ride, to breathe. "You think I wasn't broken too?" she whispered, tears threatening to fall. "You think I didn't cry myself to sleep? You left, Ty. You vanished, without a goodbye." Ty stepped closer, but cautiously, as if afraid one wrong move might shatter everything. "I thought staying away would protect you," he said. "You and Lindy. I didn't want my darkness to spread." Amy's voice cracked. "You don't get to decide what we can handle. That's not love, Ty. That's fear." The barn echoed with silence again. Ty turned his face slightly, avoiding her gaze. "I had nightmares every night. About the clinic, about the gunshot, about dying. I wasn't ready to be anyone's husband or father anymore. I was barely surviving." Amy looked down, her fingers trembling now. She had imagined this conversation 1,000 different ways, but not like this, not with so much pain, so much regret. "You know what I told Lindy when she asked about you?" Amy said, her voice rising. "That you were on a journey, that you'd come back when you could, that her daddy was brave. But I didn't know if I believed it myself." Ty flinched. The guilt in his eyes deepened. "I was a coward," he admitted, "and every day I stayed away, it got harder to come back. But seeing you now, hearing you say those words, I realize how much I hurt you." Amy wiped a tear away. "Yes, you did. But you also saved me once. You showed me what love could be. I never stopped loving you, Ty. But I stopped waiting." Those last words hit like thunder. Ty took a step back, as if her truth had knocked the air out of him. "I don't know what I expected," he said. "A hug, forgiveness. Maybe I don't deserve any of it." Amy didn't answer. She looked away, her emotions boiling beneath the surface. This wasn't the fairy tale reunion so many dreamed of. It was real, messy, wounded. "I came back to try," Ty said quietly. "Even if you never take me back, I need to show Lindy who I really am. I can't run anymore." Amy met his eyes again. "Then don't run. But don't expect me to forget everything either." Ty nodded, slowly, as if accepting the truth. There would be no shortcuts, no instant healing. This was just the beginning of a long, uncertain path. Outside, Spartan neighed softly, sensing the tension. Inside, two people stood, no longer strangers, but not yet whole. The next morning, the ranch felt colder than usual. Not because of the temperature, but because of the silence that stretched between Amy and Ty. They hadn't spoken since their painful conversation in the barn. Both had barely slept. Memories clashed with reality all night, turning rest into restless pacing, heartbeats into echoes of what once was. Amy stood in the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee, watching Lindy play outside through the window. Her daughter's laughter was like sunlight, warm, innocent, pure. But behind every giggle, Amy feared the moment Lindy would ask about the man she saw last night. "Who is he, Mommy? Why does he look like the picture by my bed?" Ty, meanwhile, sat by the creek, the same creek where he and Amy had once shared dreams, whispered promises, and planned a future that now felt like it belonged to someone else. The water rushed past him, uncaring. He held a small stone in his hand, running his thumb over it. It was smooth, like the lies he had told himself over the years. Lies like they're better off without me. Jack found him there, quiet, still. "You planning on sitting here forever?" Jack asked, arms crossed. Ty looked up, guilt washing over his face. "Maybe." Jack sighed and walked over, standing beside him. "You think you're the first man to come back home full of regret? You think this place hasn't seen its fair share of pain? I hurt her, Jack. I hurt Lindy. I walked away." Jack nodded. "You did. And you'll have to live with that. But the only thing worse than a man who walks away is a man who stays gone when he knows he should fight for what's right." Ty dropped the stone into the water. "What if it's too late?" Jack looked him dead in the eye. "Then make sure you leave nothing unsaid. Make it her choice, not yours." That afternoon, Amy saddled up and went for a ride, alone. Spartan needed the exercise, and she needed the space. But no distance could outrun her thoughts. Ty's words replayed in her head like an old song that refused to fade. "I was broken. I wanted to protect you. I came back to try." She remembered their first ride together years ago, how she had felt seen, understood, protected, and now she wasn't sure what she felt. Anger, sadness, longing. Back at the ranch, Lindy had finally asked, "Mommy, who was that man in the barn last night?" Amy's breath caught. She looked into those innocent eyes, so much like Ty's. That was your dad, sweetie." Lindy's face lit up with confusion and curiosity. "My real daddy?" Amy nodded, kneeling down. "Yes, he's been gone a long time, but he's back now." "Is he staying?" Amy didn't know what to say. "We don't know yet. He has a lot to talk about with Mommy." Later, when Amy returned from her ride, she found Ty helping Lisa fix a fence near the pasture. It was strange, seeing him there, doing ranch work again, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. That evening, they sat across from each other on the porch. Words hung heavy between them. "I talked to Lindy today," Amy began. Ty looked down, nervous. "Did she ask about me?" "She did. I told her you were her father." He swallowed hard. "I don't deserve her." "No," Amy said softly, "but she deserves you, and it's your job to prove you're worth her love." Ty leaned forward. "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, but if there's even a small piece of you that believes in second chances—" Amy cut in. "This isn't about chances, Ty. It's about showing up. Every day. No more disappearing." He nodded slowly. "I will. I promise." Amy stood up. "Good. Then start by talking to Lindy tomorrow. Be honest, but gentle." As she walked inside, Ty sat there alone. The porch creaked beneath him, the night sky slowly darkening. He had returned to Heartland full of fear and shame. But now something new stirred inside him. Purpose. The road ahead would be hard. Forgiveness was not guaranteed. But for the first time in years, Ty felt like he had a place to begin. The next morning came quietly, with the golden sunrise gently spreading across the Heartland fields. Ty stood outside the house, his hands trembling slightly as he waited on the porch. Inside, Amy was helping Lindy get ready for the day. There was a strange stillness in the air, a tension that came from the weight of what was about to happen. Today, Ty would speak to his daughter for the very first time, not as a stranger, not as a memory, but as her father. Amy opened the door and stepped out with Lindy. The little girl clutched her stuffed horse and looked up at Ty, curious but cautious. Amy gave her a gentle nudge forward. Ty knelt down slowly, trying not to overwhelm her. "Hi, Lindy," he said, his voice soft and shaking. "I'm your dad." Lindy stared at him for a moment, then tilted her head. "Why were you gone so long?" That question hit him harder than anything he had prepared for. He looked at Amy, who simply nodded, letting him face the truth. "I got sick," Ty admitted. "Not the kind of sick you can see, but the kind that makes you scared. I thought if I left, you'd all be safer. But I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I missed everything I shouldn't have." Lindy looked at him thoughtfully. "Mommy missed you too." "I know," Ty whispered, "and I want to try to make it right, if you let me." There was a long pause before Lindy took a slow step forward and placed her small hand in his. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. The first brick in a broken bridge he had to rebuild with care, honesty, and time. Inside, Amy watched through the window. Her heart ached. She had feared this moment for years, feared Ty's absence and what it had done to her daughter. But seeing them together, even in that fragile moment, stirred something old and powerful inside her. Love, maybe, or hope, or both. But just as things seemed to take a turn toward healing, life, true to form, threw another curve. Later that day, as Amy and Lou sorted through paperwork in the barn office, Lou came across something that made her pause. A legal envelope addressed to Amy, postmarked nearly 6 months ago, but unopened. When Amy tore it open, her eyes widened. It was a custody petition, filed by someone named Nathan Mills. Amy felt like the ground shifted beneath her. "Who the hell is Nathan Mills?" she whispered. Lou looked just as confused. "Do you know him?" Amy's hands shook. "Number, but it says here he's claiming to be Lindy's biological father." Ty had just come in from the field and overheard the last part. "What?" he said sharply, rushing over. Amy handed him the letter. "It's not possible. This has to be some kind of mistake, or—" Ty's face went pale. "I know that name." Amy froze. "What?" "He was a patient. At the facility where I was getting treatment. He was obsessed with horses. Talked about Heartland all the time. I never told him much, but maybe he found out somehow. Followed me here." Amy's voice was ice. "You brought someone dangerous into our lives?" "I didn't mean to," Ty said quickly. "I didn't know. He seemed harmless." Amy backed away, panic rising in her chest. "This is exactly why I couldn't trust you before. You disappear, come back with a heart full of regrets, and now a stranger is trying to claim my daughter." Ty stepped forward. "Our daughter." Amy held up a hand. "Don't. Not now." As Ty stood there, helpless, Lou placed a comforting hand on Amy's shoulder. "We'll figure this out. We always do." But this wasn't like before. This wasn't about a misunderstanding or a broken heart. This was about Lindy's safety, her future. And suddenly, the reunion that had just started to blossom felt like it was on the edge of collapse. That night, Amy sat in her room with the letter in her hands, her mind spinning. Was this a scare tactic? A real legal threat? Or something even darker? She couldn't tell, but one thing was clear. Peace wasn't going to come easy. Outside, Ty stood under the stars, his face heavy with guilt. He had come back to rebuild a family. But now, it seemed his very return had invited something dangerous into their world. He looked up at the sky, silently asking a question that had no easy answer. How do you protect the ones you love when you are the reason they're in danger? The air was tense, cold, even in the warmth of the Heartland sun. Amy hadn't spoken to Ty since the letter arrived. The news of Nathan Mills, his claim, his name, his connection to Ty, had shaken her to the core. Amy had fought battles before. She'd fought for her ranch, for her daughter, for herself. But this time, the enemy wasn't just legal or emotional. It was a shadow, a name on a piece of paper threatening to unravel the fragile bond she and Ty were only just beginning to rebuild. Ty didn't sleep that night. His mind ran circles around every mistake he'd made. Every time he thought he was protecting his family by staying away, he had only created more cracks for others to slip through. Nathan Mills. Just the sound of the name made his blood run cold. The man had been friendly at first, curious, even kind in a detached way. but Ty remembered now. How Nathan had always watched too closely, listened too carefully, especially when Ty mentioned Alberta, horses, or ranching. Now, that man was trying to stake a claim on Lindy. Ty knew the truth in his bones. Lindy was his daughter, no one else's. But proving it, defending it, that was another battle entirely. Especially now, when Amy's trust in him was hanging by a thread. Morning came with a cruel weight. Amy walked into the kitchen with the letter in her hand. She looked at Ty across the room, her eyes tired, her voice clipped. "We need to do a DNA test. Not because I doubt you, but because I need to shut this down before it becomes a storm." Ty nodded. "I'll do it. Anything to protect her." Amy stared at him. "You should have told me about Nathan the second you recognized his name. You waited." "I was afraid," Ty admitted. "Afraid it would push you further away. I wanted time. Just a little more time to be her dad again before everything fell apart." Amy's expression softened slightly. "It already has, Ty. But if you want to fix this, we don't have time to hide." The test was scheduled that afternoon. Simple. Clinical, a swab, a few signatures, and a promise to wait. But the emotional wait was anything but simple. Amy didn't let Lindy come. She didn't want her exposed to the noise yet. She and Ty sat silently in the waiting room after the samples were taken. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Everything that mattered was written on their faces. Later that night, Amy took a long walk through the field. The horses followed her slowly, their presence grounding, reminding her of the life she'd built from pieces. She remembered a time when she didn't think she could survive without Ty. Then a time when she was certain she'd never need him again. Now, she wasn't sure. What scared her most wasn't the thought of losing him again. It was the thought that she still cared. Meanwhile, Ty was in the barn, brushing Spartan, whispering old memories into the horse's ear like secrets he couldn't say aloud. "She's still angry, Spartan," he murmured, "and I don't blame her. I left when she needed me. Now I'm back, and trouble followed. Maybe she was better off without me." But the horse just snorted and nudged him gently as if to say, "You're still needed, maybe more than ever." A few days passed. Then the call came. Amy answered it in the kitchen, Ty standing beside her. The woman on the line spoke clearly, clinically. "We've completed the paternity results. Ty Borden is the biological father of Lindy Marion Borden." Amy closed her eyes. Relief washed over her like rain. Ty's hand clenched the edge of the table, tears welling in his eyes. It wasn't a surprise, but it was still everything. But before they could even begin to process it, another knock came at the door. It was Jack, and his face was grim. "There's a man out by the road. Says his name is Nathan Mills. He wants to talk." Amy and Ty exchanged a look, equal parts fear and fury. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. They walked out together, side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Amy felt the old fire in her chest, protective, strong, unshakable, and Ty, for the first time in years, felt like a man with something to stand for again. Nathan Mills stood by the fence, arms folded, wearing a smug smile that sent a chill down Ty's spine. He looked like he belonged in another world, not Heartland, not here. "I heard the results came in," Nathan said casually. "DNA doesn't change anything. You think this is about biology? It's about who's best for her. And I've got proof you're not." Amy stepped forward, her voice fierce. "You don't get to decide what's best for my daughter. You don't belong here, and you're not welcome." Nathan tilted his head. "Then I guess I'll see you in court." He turned and walked away, leaving a silence louder than thunder in his wake. Ty and Amy stood there, shoulders tight, hearts racing. They didn't know what Nathan had, or how far he'd go. But one thing was certain. This fight had just begun, and this time, they'd have to face it together. The raw truth had been spoken. The emotional walls cracked wide open. Now came the storm, and Heartland would never be the same.